The Kawasaki Ninja H2R isn't just fast, it's completely forbidden on public roads for being excessively powerful, brutally loud, and uncompromisingly extreme. But what truly pushed it onto the blacklist? The real reason is buried deep within its supercharged 998cc heart, an engineering masterpiece so aggressive it alarmed regulators across the globe. Once you understand what Kawasaki created here, it becomes clear why no manufacturer has ever attempted something this insane again. To understand the H2R, you have to go back to where Kawasaki's hunger for speed first took shape. This obsession didn't start yesterday. In 1972, Kawasaki unleashed a motorcycle that shocked the entire industry, the Kawasaki H2 Mach 4. Powered by a 750cc two-stroke engine, it wasn't designed to be refined or forgiving. It was violent, unpredictable, and unapologetically fast. Riders quickly gave it a terrifying nickname, the Widowmaker, because of its explosive power and unstable handling. That original H2 even had a race-only variant called the H2R, and together they cemented Kawasaki's reputation for building machines that ignored limits and terrified anyone brave enough to ride them. Kawasaki never forgot that legacy. As the years passed, they weren't content with simply making fast bikes, they wanted dominance. During the 1990s and early 2000s, the motorcycle world entered what fans now call the Speed Wars. Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, every major brand wanted to claim the title of fastest production motorcycle on Earth. Kawasaki fired back with machines like the Ninja ZX-11 and later the ZX-12R. These bikes clashed directly with legends like the Honda CBR 1100XX Blackbird and the Suzuki Hayabusa, pushing top speeds beyond 300 km per hour, or roughly 186 miles per hour. But things began spiraling out of control. European lawmakers started to panic. The idea of everyday riders accessing machines capable of 200 plus mph on public highways was a safety nightmare. So, in the early 2000s, manufacturers quietly struck an informal agreement. They would electronically cap top speed at 300 km per hour to avoid government crackdowns. That truce slowed the war, but it didn't satisfy Kawasaki. Time passed, and a dangerous idea began to form. What if they didn't play by those rules anymore? What if they built a motorcycle that didn't need to obey speed restrictions, emissions laws, or street regulations at all? A machine never intended for traffic lights or license plates, only for closed circuits. That question ignited something radical. In 2014, at the Tokyo Motor Show, Kawasaki revealed their answer. Two motorcycles were coming. One was the Ninja H2, a street-legal, supercharged monster. The other was the Ninja H2R, a track-only weapon with absolutely no compromises. While the H2 was already terrifying, the H2R existed on a completely different level. No headlights, no mirrors, no emission systems, just raw performance engineered without restraint. Kawasaki described it as built beyond belief, and for once, marketing didn't exaggerate. The H2R was so significant that Kawasaki awarded it the River Mark, a historic emblem dating back to the 1870s, rarely placed on motorcycles and reserved only for landmark creations. For the H2R, it was deserved. When the bike officially launched in 2015, it instantly became the most powerful production motorcycle ever built. Its output? Around 310 horsepower, nearly 50% more than any street-legal bike of its era. And the secret behind that power comes down to one word: supercharging. Most motorcycles rely on natural aspiration, drawing air in at normal atmospheric pressure. The H2R ignores that entirely. It force-feeds its engine compressed air using a supercharger designed and built entirely in-house by Kawasaki. This isn't an off-the-shelf component, it was engineered specifically for this machine. At the core of the system is a planetary gear-driven impeller spinning at up to 130,000 revolutions per minute, over 9 times faster than the engine itself. At full throttle, the H2R rams more than 200 liters of air into the engine every second. Intake pressure reaches about 2.4 times atmospheric levels, roughly 35 pounds per square inches. More air means more fuel. More fuel means bigger explosions. Bigger explosions mean absurd power. Unlike turbochargers, which need exhaust flow to build boost, The H2R's supercharger is mechanically linked to the crankshaft. That means instant response, no lag, no delay. Twist the throttle, and the power hits immediately. Thanks to Kawasaki's aerospace engineering expertise, the system is so efficient it doesn't even require an intercooler, saving weight and complexity. The engine itself may be a 998cc inline-4, but nothing about it is ordinary. Every internal component, pistons, rods, valves, crankshaft, has been strengthened or custom forged to survive extreme heat and pressure. The supercharger drive is integrated directly into the engine, keeping the package compact and balanced. At speed, ram air pushes output even higher, allowing the H2R to reach as much as 326 horsepower. To put that into perspective, most modern liter bikes make between 180 and 205 horsepower. Even the Hayabusa sits around 190. The H2R exceeds them by more than 100 horsepower, while weighing only about 220 kilograms. The power-to-weight ratio is borderline absurd, rivaling high-end race cars. Handling that energy required equally extreme hardware. Kawasaki chose a high-tensile steel trellis frame instead of aluminum, allowing controlled flex at high speeds and better heat management. A single-sided swing arm, Kawasaki's first on a sport bike, shows off a massive 200mm slick tire, while maintaining rigidity by mounting directly to the engine. Suspension duties are handled by top-tier KYB and Öhlins components, designed to survive brutal braking and cornering forces. Braking comes from massive 330mm discs with Brembo monoblock calipers, backed by race-tuned ABS. Electronically, the H2R is packed with rider aids, traction control, launch control, wheelie control, engine braking management, and a bidirectional quickshifter connected to a MotoGP-style dog ring gearbox. Aerodynamics play a crucial role. Carbon fiber winglets generate real downforce at extreme speeds, helping keep the front wheel planted. Kawasaki introduced this tech before winglets became mainstream in MotoGP and high-end street bikes. Even the paint is advanced, a self-healing coating that removes minor scratches over time. So why can't it be ridden on the street? Because it was never intended to be. No lights, no mirrors, no emissions controls, no mufflers, no license plate mount. It runs slick racing tires and a straight pipe exhaust exceeding 120 decibels. It would fail noise and emissions tests instantly. That's why the street-legal Ninja H2 exists, a toned-down version with about 200 horsepower, built to comply with regulations. The H2R also doesn't race professionally. MotoGP bans forced induction. World Superbike requires street homologation. Since the H2R meets neither rulebook, Kawasaki races the ZX-10R instead. That leaves the H2R in a category of its own, too extreme for public roads, too unrestricted for organized racing. So, is the Ninja H2R dangerous on the street? Not because it's uncontrollable, but because public roads were never designed for a 300-plus horsepower missile. Traffic laws, infrastructure, and human reaction times simply can't keep up. Even if the rider could, the world around them never could. And this is where the Ninja H2R stops being just a motorcycle and starts feeling like a warning. A warning about what happens when engineering is allowed to run free without legal limits, without compromises, without concern for comfort or accessibility. Kawasaki didn't ask whether riders should have this much power. They only asked whether it was possible. On a closed circuit, the H2R makes sense. Wide runoff areas, predictable surfaces, trained riders, and controlled environments allow its performance to exist safely. Uneven asphalt, sudden potholes, unpredictable drivers, animals crossing without warning, oil spills, debris, these are things no amount of horsepower or electronics can erase. At H2R speeds, mistakes don't happen in seconds. They happen in milliseconds, and recovery simply isn't an option. Even visibility becomes a problem. On the street, riders rely on headlights, mirrors, and signals to communicate with the world around them. The H2R has none of that. It doesn't warn, it doesn't signal. It simply arrives faster than most drivers can process. At extreme velocity, you're no longer reacting to traffic. Even traffic lights become irrelevant, because by the time they register in your vision, you're already past them, or into them. Then there's rider fatigue. Managing over 300 horsepower isn't just physically demanding, it's mentally exhausting. The constant vibration, the brutal acceleration, the force pushing against your arms and neck at high speed, it wears you down quickly. On a track, sessions are short and controlled. On the street, there is no such mercy. Long stretches of riding would turn into a battle of endurance, not enjoyment. Insurance companies understand this reality. That's another reason the H2R never touched the road. No insurer wants to calculate risk on a machine capable of reaching aircraft takeoff speeds in seconds. There's no data, no precedent, no safety margin. It exists outside every statistical model built for public transportation. And yet, despite all of this, the H2R remains one of the most admired motorcycles ever created, not because people want to ride it to work, but because it represents something rare, pure intent. It's a machine built without apology, a declaration that Kawasaki could still do what others wouldn't even attempt. In a world increasingly shaped by regulations, emissions targets, and electronic safety nets, the H2R feels almost rebellious. It reminds riders of a time when motorcycles were raw, dangerous, and thrilling.